For coming to our KEA knowledge sharing session. This session is going to be recorded. It'll be up on the KEA website, ksc.ke.nas.gov, in about 2 weeks, so you can check back for a list of upcoming events. And also, if you like what you heard, you can refer your coworkers to that website so they can watch this as well. Today, we're going to hear from Kevin Panic. He is a PAD manager for PAD A. He's a customer advocate in the Spaceport Integration Directorate. He's been working in SI for a little while now, but before that, by the age of 25, he had over 13 different jobs and positions. So while driving a beer truck on a hot day, he finally came to the realization that he needed to go back to school and get some different education, and he went through school and to become an engineer. He has a degree from the University of Central Florida and also an MBA from FIT. He has experience in program and project management, software project management, pad operations. He's got a host of hobbies. Let's see, he's good with welding and canoeing, and also he's a model. Oh, model building. And he has a passion for all things space and thinking about the future of this great planet that we're on. So please give a warm welcome to Kevin Panic.
Thank you, Mike. Can you hear me okay? All right, super. Thanks for coming out on such a rainy afternoon. I can't change the weather, but maybe I can bring a little sunshine and tell you some stories here today. This is the KEA 134 PAD A Design Decisions, History of a Landmark. PAD A has kind of become my passion. I can't believe I work out there. Every day I drive in, I just kind of have to pinch myself and say, is this really real? You know, am I a part of this history? And I'd like to share that with you today. And I'm going to take all the stress off myself and just call myself a travel agent here today, okay? So I can add to that list of 13 jobs. This will be number 14. And in that way, what I'm going to do is just kind of take you on this journey together, okay? The presentation method I have for today is to talk a little. Now I look out and I see a few people that know me and they're going to say, oh my God, Panic, he cannot talk just a little. Don't let him corner you, because he will talk your ear off. But Michael has told me I only have 50 minutes, so I do have a deadline, so I do have to only talk a little. And then I'll talk a little bit about the pictures. And today it's really not all about design. I kind of had to put the design in there, otherwise I couldn't get it approved as a lessons learned. But it's going to have some other elements, not just the lessons learned, and I hope you can pick up on those and enjoy it today. So to talk about this picture here, this is a false color from Skylab, and the actual Skylab was launched from PAD A, 39A, in the 70s. So the goals, let's just get them out up front so that I'm not kind of you don't know where I'm headed with this. So the presentation goal, number one, is to entertain. You know, what good is it if I'm up here just talking and doing charts and numbers and it's not entertaining? So I really do want to entertain you, and I think I've got a package here today that could help meet that goal. I want to, like I said, take you on a journey through time. A little bit of the history and just how we got there and where we're headed. I want to highlight a lesson learned, a single PAD A lesson learned that I think is a real good nugget and a great takeaway. I want to communicate what I feel is a very important fact. And we all know it. I mean, being that we work out here, and heck, you can look out the window and see the pad, you know, but kind of communicate it in a little different manner, maybe a way you haven't heard it before. And then finally to inspire, you know, to share with you my love and where I think we're headed, what I see as the future, and hopefully you'll find that just as inspiring as I do. So you go, hey, PAD A, what's the big deal? Okay, so I Google, I Google points of interest in Florida, okay, and then all these pins come up on these charts. All these things came together. Launch from Pad A, humanity steps out on a celestial body. Just, and it's a first, and you never get another first like that. So how did we succeed? And I contend that the list is almost too long, really. I've got some graphics up here, and I don't know if anybody in the audience can want to chime in on some things, you know, of some thoughts of what are some of the elements to succeeding in a complex project like that. You know, I have like test up there as one. Can anyone think of another one? Just shout it out. It's fine. You know, they've got teamwork, right? We've got teamwork. Infinite money, Apollo, right? That's, I got the money bag there. There was an infinite amount of money to make this happen. So those are some of the things that helped us succeed. And like I said, I think today we could, if we didn't have a room of shy people, you know, we could sit here and we could brainstorm and we would come up with literally probably, you know, 50 words in a matter of 15 minutes of how we succeeded and made that happen. You know, courage, right? That's one too, courage. So how do we build on this legacy of success? And the answer to that is we build. This chart took me a lot of thought and a lot of time to put together because it's probably one of the most important charts I think I have in this presentation today, barring the lessons learned. And I want to explain it a little bit. So what I have here is pictured, you know, some huge engineering successes at the time for humanity, right? We've got the pyramids shown there. We've got Stonehenge and the Colosseum. And how can I, you ask, how can I have, you know, those images with some Pad A drawings or sketches, you know, side by side? And let me explain. So the pyramids, you know, can you imagine a couple thousand years ago as a person just kind of walking by and seeing this huge triangle in the desert? You would have been in awe of the society that built that. I mean, I just, you know, it would blow you away, right? And so we've preserved that. What humanity has determined is that these historic accomplishments needed to be preserved for as long as humanity's on the earth, as long as we can preserve them, right? So basically we kind of rope off the pyramids, right? And we say, you know, don't touch those. These things are so important to us as humans and humanity that we don't ever want these things to change so that our children and our children's children can come and see this and see from where we came, right? This unites us. This is from where we came. Pad A, we could have done that, right? I mean, if you think about the accomplishment of humanity leaving Earth, you know, and going to another celestial body, what it took to get there, we could have said, don't touch the pad. It's done. And after that launch, let's rope it off. This is so special to humanity. We should not touch this. But we decided not to do that, okay? We decided to say, yes, this is an incredible accomplishment. We need to document. We documented on live television. We had it documented in various, you know, a wide variety of ways. You know, we've had photographers go out there and take pictures for the National Archives and such. So, but we decided as a society to say, no, we want this area, we want this ground, this 160 acres. We want it to continue to work for us. So we're okay with not roping it off. We want it to continue to work. We're gonna convert it and change it to continue to support even larger and bigger efforts for humanity. And that's kind of what you have here. So, and also this is just a early graph of some thoughts I had for other pads at one time. They were talking about, you know, in the early days, Apollo and Saturn, that they might have, you know, literally maybe 100 Saturn-class vehicles. So they were going to extend more and more pads. But we know that, you know, the national will and money kind of dried up, and so we didn't get to that level. And then here's an old sketch, and this is kind of interesting. And then the package actually will be on the website available. These you kind of blow up. This is a vehicle, and the orientation actually, this early drawing, the orientation is 90 degrees out from where we actually had gotten with shuttle. So, and also on that chart, I think I said and test. So it was important that, you know, the things we do, we've learned that, you know, when you do incremental steps or you do something, you kind of need to test. And that's where we're gonna work our way today into the lessons learned. And so I put up some really graphic tests, right? I mean, these are like spectacular, you know. You've got Apollo test of the escape system that was done in White Sands. Now we were still building Kennedy. We were still building a pad, so we really couldn't test it here. So we test that out at White Sands. Orion, there you see again the escape system test in Orion, and then just recently Dragon at Cape Canaveral Air Station. And these are like the tests that get all the press, right? Because you got smoke and fire, you've got so much data within seconds. You know, you get so much information in a matter of seconds, and the tests are completed and done, and they really make the headlines and the news. For today's lesson learned, our test is a little more simple, a little bit more, behind the scenes, kind of not as flashy, but just as important, just as important. And I put the little Joe up there just because I like saying little Joe. It's kind of, you know, how can you not like saying, hey, little Joe? So, all right, so we're finally going to get into our lessons learned. And this chart is kind of interesting. You know, I got the new cell phone, and I said, man, you know, these are great. You can take pictures of everything. So that's actually a picture of a piece of paper that I've had for I don't even know how long. It's been at least 10 years. And you can actually, if you look close, you'll see little holes in the center of it at the top where I have on my cork board. So I have this like on my cork board in my office because it's actually a chart. I'll be honest with you, I don't know where it came from, but I envision it being as one of the charts that was pitched probably to the Congress or to someone to say, this is how we're going to process shuttle and fly it every 2 weeks. All right, this is in the early days, and this was produced to kind of timeline and tell you how we were going to fly every two weeks. So the lesson, like I said, I want to talk about today is from a test that occurred, and it's just one small example of a myriad of lessons learned that you can get if you just take a little time and research. I mean, the librarians helped me; they're wonderful. I don't know if they're here today. I don't see them. And the archivists, they're over there in headquarters, and there's mountains of information. And if you spend just a little time researching and digging, you can find your own lessons learned and take those and share them, because we don't want to repeat some things sometimes. And also, I need to say that the analysis of this lessons learned, the programmatic stuff and that kind of stuff is kind of my opinion, just from my many years working in project management and that kind of stuff. So some of the things that you're going to see in the lessons learned are based upon kind of my opinion of what happened, not the actual lesson learned, but what precipitated it, and some of the information that you'll see today. Okay, so let's go a little deeper into this lessons learned. Okay, from the previous chart, you'll see that we were going to process the orbital vehicle. All the payloads were going to be loaded horizontally. That's kind of how you can get there. That's, you put it in horizontally. You put it in at the OPF, drop the thing in. It's inherently safer, and it keeps your timeline. The Pad A payload changeout room at that time, okay, so now they said we need to have some capability at the launch pad, okay, for a contingency to if there's some reason we need to dig in there and get at that payload, it's not going to be a primary method. We just need a small room for a few guys to get in there and get at the payload for some contingency reason, not as a primary mode of payload. And the clean room, I don't know how clean it was specified at that time as standards and that kind of stuff, but it would have to be somewhat of a clean room. But again, it was a contingency for a preloaded payload. And here you can see this is a drawing of the initial design. It's just hinged from the fixed service structure and a room, just like I described here. Nothing spectacular, just to allow for contingency operations. So we'll go a little deeper. The payload customers, other than NASA, were identified to help the rising costs. As with a lot of these programs and projects, things are changing. Costs are starting to rise. So NASA's kind of looking around and saying, hey, anybody want to share in this thing? And actually we got somebody to raise their hand. We got the Air Force to raise their hand. And they say, you know what? We like that vehicle. It could probably put up some DoD payloads for us and such, but we've got a requirement that payloads be processed vertically. Okay? So when NASA made that deal, it forced them to no longer be the driver for what a payload, and I use the word shall because those of us in the requirements world know that word shall, right? The shall word is, shall means you've got to do that, all right? So it no longer allowed NASA to be the driver for what a payload shall be required to look like, to fly, i.e. horizontal processing, right? We said, okay, Air Force, help us share in this, and we will change the design and make the PCR a vertical payload. So the PCR then began this incremental change. All right, so now you've got some customers, new customers coming on saying what he needs, and the weight of the room, the small room, again, that was just going to be for contingency operations and a few people to check out a payload is now growing. It's grown to a crane. It's no longer an overhead crane. It's this thing called a PIGM, which does horizontal translations of the payload and has to twist and turn to be able to fit it in the payload bay. You've got 15, 20 guys that have to ride this thing and spot it. All of a sudden, it's just you've got commodities. Oh, we want to fuel the payload. Okay, now you've got fueling concerns and panels and such. So all this started happening, okay? And you read this as starting to cost more and more and more money. Now, I said I was going to talk a little bit about pictures, and these are fantastic pictures. And I need to pause for a moment and ask Eugene Hajay to stand, please, or at least to be recognized, because actually this is the gentleman, when I was talking to him on the phone saying, Gene, I've got a presentation I want to give, and I want to inspire people at KEA about Pad A. I love it so much, and there's so much, going on out there. I said, but Michael Bell, he's forcing me over here to put some engineering in it, And Gene says, listen, I've got one for you. I got something from when he was a young design engineer at the contractor level involved in this, okay? So, it's just fantastic to have him here today, and he shared these pictures of actual construction back in the early 70s of the PCR as it was being changed and made larger and larger. Now, don't look too closely at this crane operation here, because you'll see the treads kind of hanging over the main engine flame trench, okay? It was the can-do attitude. I'm sure those crane operators and those guys, they knew what they were doing, but we wouldn't be doing that way today, okay? But it was, had to get it done. It was just that mentality of, the nation's waiting for this vehicle, and we've got this infrastructure we have to build. A little deeper, okay? So what happened? Well, the weight started increasing. Here we had the little room with a swing arm, just kind of a garage door kind of thing, to this massive structure that we had to extend and put legs. The weight to each leg was under 500, just a little under 500 tons now to each leg. The room had gotten so big, you had railroad trucks on these legs, and you had to lay essentially railroad track so that the thing could swing through its arc, okay? Huge, huge changes. Here's a picture of some of the drawings that Gene gave me. And again, you can kind of see where the RSS trucks are in both these images here. And the room is rotated back out of the way for the vehicle to arrive at the pad. And what's beautiful, what I think is just so beautiful about this lessons learned is we've got a gentleman in the room that was here as a young design engineer, saw the changes, implemented it, you know, and then it's kind of gone full circle. Because now you can actually look out the window here today and you can see that they're demolishing, slowly taking off the metal from the PCR so that you know, it will be ultimately removed. So we have kind of a cradle to grave lessons learned here today. And I'll talk more about that in some other charts. Okay, so these guys work real hard. They design the thing. They okay, here it is. It's system test day. We're going to roll the thing, okay? So this guy, Cecil Wellmont, am I saying his name right?
Wilhoit.
Wilhoit. Cecil Wilhoit, who is no longer with us, was the primary contractor and the lead guy out there. He hooks up this vehicle. I guess, I don't know if it's like some tank puller from World War II. I'm not sure. But he starts pulling the thing through the arc. Okay, and everyone's kind of standing there. All of a sudden, you hear this humongous bang, and the entire RSS just shakes. Holy cow, everyone, stop, stop. You know what's going on? So, looking around, no, let's just try to pull a little bit and pull a little bit more, okay? Start pulling a little bit more, same thing happens. Bang! And the entire thing shakes. Okay, all right, time out, time out. If we had back then, I don't think they had timeout cards, but somebody was probably throwing something, okay? Time out. So Gene and all the engineers and all these guys, you know, okay, they head all back to the design desk back in another building, right? Everybody's huddling up. They start running through the numbers. They start looking at this in the truck and the arc, and they start saying, holy cow, the trucks aren't really moving, but we're looking at, you know, the stresses and the strains are going through the roof, okay? These numbers are starting to go through the roof, the stresses on these trucks and this kind of stuff, right? All these guys are in this room going, oh my goodness, you know, we're looking at redesign. You know, we're looking at months of delay. The numbers here on what's happening are just, you know, through the roof. We might have to tear up the track. We might have to relay the track or whatever, you know. Now in those days, the telephone had actually like bells in it, and the phone had like this little circular thing you would put your finger in and you could dial with it, all right? So these guys are in this room, and all of a sudden the phone rings, okay? These bells, you know, the phone actually had bells. It wasn't like some wave file, okay? So they pick up the phone, and it's Cecil. And he says, hey, you guys need to come up here on the pad surface. All right. Oh, hey, Cecil's calling us, tell us to come up the pad surface. All right, guys, they all jump in their cars, right? And they're still there, you know, they're talking, they're driving up to the pad going, man, you know, who's going to tell the project manager? You know, we got to tear up the rails, you know, millions of dollars, you know, millions of dollars. So they get up to the pad surface, and Cecil's there, and he's kind of smiling, right? And they're like, how can he be smiling at a time like this? You know, we just sat here and ran some numbers, you know. So they walk up, and he says, guys, he says, watch this, okay? So he tells this guy, go ahead and start it up, start moving, and you know, kind of looking at him like he's crazy. We had to stop work, you know. And here's the thing I'd like to pause for a second and say, you know, we know about litigation now, right? These days, and litigation, and sometimes we say, you know, the contractor sometimes is in it for the money, and you know, change orders. I mean, if you think about it, you know, Cecil could have just let the engineers, kind of do their things. And he was looking at probably making a lot of money in change orders. And here he is directing the guy to fire up the tug and start pulling the thing through. There's a lot of, he's assuming liability right there, right? In this day and age of litigious societies and stuff, when he's telling that guy to fire that up and start pulling it, it's not NASA now, it's him. But you know what? The guy fires it up and starts pulling the tractor. And it gets to the point where it banged before and everyone's kind of just waiting, and there's nothing. There's no bang. The thing just rolls right through, all the way through the stops at the end where it's supposed to go, in position. Takes the tug, and just to show that it's not a one-off, all right, good guy that he is, takes the tug and says, pulls it back the other way. Pulls it through the arc. No bang, nothing. Okay, what Cecil knew and had kind of maybe seen before something is binding, okay? And what was occurring and what the engineers were starting to kind of get onto back when they were in the room and looking at coefficients of static friction and such, was that because the arc and the trucks weren't, and I can't really, and here's the thing, the guy that can really explain it is after the talk. If you want to hear it, you can hear it from the man himself. You can hear it from Gene, because he was running numbers. But basically, what you were getting was the arc wasn't perfect, and it was just building up, and the wheels would ride up ever so slightly on the rail. And when it got to the point where the stresses were high enough, it would relieve. And the way it would relieve is it would just fall fractions of an inch. But those were enough distance to make a huge bang. And Cecil had just taken STP oil treatment, and he had poured STP oil treatment all along the rails before those engineers had come up there, okay? And just that difference, allowing some lubrication, allowed it to pull through the arc. No change orders required. No millions of dollars or months and months of schedule delay, okay? And all during shuttle, we didn't use STP because probably not very environmentally friendly, and it was flammable, okay? We used, essentially I got a bar of soap, but it was kind of like a soap. So anytime we moved the RSS prior to moving it, in the process, we would soap the rails. We never had a problem with it. Kind of wrapping it up here, and I kind of want to wrap it up in a program project kind of sense here. So there's a screaming monkey, and if y'all don't know, in the project manager world, it's a screaming monkey of scope creep. And you can kind of, I think, just a screaming monkey. I think you kind of got the picture of what it is. It's just this thing that won't go away. It's just screaming. You have to attend to it. It just is not going to go away. So we call it the screaming monkey of scope creep. And what it's now that we can look back, we can say, yeah, look, the change from the requirement from horizontal to vertical, these kinds of things, all this scope creep, all these changes compounded, right, and got us to where we had even possibly a technical issue, because you have the triangle in project management. This is a triangle. We have good, fast, and cheap. Pick any two. Now, I'm not a mathematics guy, and I don't know how I could do proof of this or whatever, but 20 years and working with all of the project managers, I have not found how you can pick all three. It's pick any two, okay? Pick any two in project management. And so I like to think, this is the kind of one of those thought experiments, the what if. It's kind of funny because I was thinking about this today when I was going to use the term the what if, and I think, my own family, it's like the panics. We get together at Thanksgiving, and we got all, and we're just so good at what you should have done. That's the phrase. So you'll start telling a story in your life, telling dad or mom, and you'll say, I did this and that, and you kind of, it didn't really work out that way. They go, what you should have done. I mean, you get so many, you get all the panics. They'll tell you what you should have done. So I'm not trying to say what you should have done on here, but I'm just kind of give a little thought experiment of possibly what if, okay? So what could have been? And I got an image up here. This is a North American in General Dynamics, a proposal for a 100% fully reusable Space Transportation System to Low Earth Orbit. Okay, that was the original specification for the space shuttle, right? That was really what NASA had originally said we wanted to have. 100% reusable, okay? What happened, you can see it. There were some things that, changes and such, but this was their proposal. And the reason it was not accepted was cost. It was too expensive, okay? It wasn't that it couldn't technically be done, it was too expensive. So now the thought experiment is all these changes, all these things where we had boosters that splashed down in the ocean and ships, we had to buy ships now, we had to have crews, we had to have specially trained divers to know how to handle it. We had to fly parachutes, thousands of pounds of parachutes on boosters so that we could retrieve them. All those costs, all those things that kind of came out and scope creep and cost over. What if we would have at the time gone back to the American public and said, we do have a proposal, it's just way more expensive than we thought. But we feel that the nation, and we feel that this idea of 100% fully reusable, then you can maybe turn it around every 2 weeks. Now, I'm not saying, I don't know how, this is the thought experiment. But maybe, you see here, these are very similar to winged craft that aren't going to be splashing down in salt water and maybe land on runways and such. So, but what if we would have gone back to the American people and said, it's so much more expensive, but we believe it's worth it, and kind of put it out there. Believe it or not, we would have been flying. What SpaceX has done, the incredible relanding the booster, last year and again this year and here probably in a few more days, we would have been doing it for 30 years. We would have been doing it for 30 years. But what did we get? I'll tell you what we got. We got mission success, okay? We really did, because this is a can-do attitude. This was people that took the requirements and said, we'll implement them, we'll make it work. Every time I went up in the PCR, I never at once felt like it was structurally unsound. I spent many a day, many a night in there working with the payload guys, and the systems worked well inside there. The clean room was good. It withstood hurricanes. Okay, so 100% mission success is what we got, and hats off to those guys that made it happen. So what about Pad A in the last 40 years? Pad A's been transitioned and reshaped. We built, I have an image there of STS-1 launched on April 12th, 81. I've got some images of where we took the structure off from Saturn, because the Saturn vehicle had the fixed service structure on the mobile launcher, kind of like what we're doing with SLS. Shuttle wanted the fixed service structure on the pad surface, so here you see cranes recycling and reusing, right? We took sections down and put them out at Pad A to support shuttle. Here's an early picture of the PCR when it was under construction. We built our first large-scale off-Earth outpost. Try to say that fast 3 times. With the shuttle program. And that even added more to the sanctity of Pad A. Couldn't have been done without the support structures and that piece of sand out there just 3 miles away that we can look outside through these windows today. And then you had the first element launched from Russia, okay, for the International Space Station. But the second element came from here. Pad A right now. Well, Pad A, a lot of you probably have seen, you drive out there, you see the 39A Falcon Heavy Hangar. Now SpaceX doesn't like acronyms, so we do say it out. It's the 39A Falcon Heavy Hangar. So that's probably one of the most visible changes that you can see out there today, but a lot of infrastructure changes, a lot of pad support structures, the PTCR, just incredible amounts of work have been done in the 2 years that they've been out there. And you can see in this image the crane that's actually removing some of the structural steel and support structures from shuttle, from the FSS, because SpaceX needs to clean up that FSS, and then also while they're out there grabbing a few things off the RSS for future demolition of the RSS. I seem to have missed the charts. There was a chart. If you don't mind, I want to back up just a second. There was one that had, no, I guess not. Huh, crazy. All right. So what will Pad A bring? Well, commercial success for the U.S. space program, resupply to Mars bases possibly, a gateway to other outposts, human outposts in all of the heavens. And I contend it's like the multiple choice you took in college. It's all of the above on this one. It really is. Pad A is going to support all of that. And here you can see in this image their transporter erector when they first went vertical up at the pad surface. This is just an image of an artist renditioning of a Mars base potential, and then just some children here frolicking in the foreground, like I say, in the heavens. And the key here is you all made it happen, and you continue to make it happen. It's the people, and even out there in TV land. If you even think about space, you know, I contend that, yeah, okay, you may be not as connected as the people here at NASA or the centers, but just thinking about space and having your heart, you're part of the effort. You're part of humanity moving into the heavens. And Pad A was built by a free society to benefit all society. And that's a key difference about the pyramids, right? There was slave labor used in the pyramids and such. I mean, incredible, and at the time that's what it is. But the beauty that we have now is that free societies are doing these things. And these achievements, and those yet to be realized, launch from Pad A. The human exploration gene is carried into space. And I believe, and I think a lot of people know and can feel it, you can feel it, it's a human trait to explore. You know, I say it's called DNA. It's somewhere in there. I don't know if they've identified that exploration gene just yet, but it's in there. It's part of the ladder. It really is. And we do these advances for all mankind. We really do. I got this one. This one's kind of interesting. You see there did a little double asterisk on there. So I go to Wikipedia and I look up NASA in Wikipedia, and it says right there in the top, it says NASA motto, you know, for the benefit of all. And I go, oh my God, I love that. I go, I love NASA's motto. I go, that's just wonderful. So I get with the public affairs. I said, man, we got a great motto. They go, Kevin, what are you talking about? NASA doesn't have a motto. And I'm like, what? I go, you know, I just saw it on Wikipedia. So, okay, here's the thing. I'm not giving bad information. Now, am I going to tell Mr. Wikipedia that he is wrong on this point? Absolutely not. I love this thing. So I'm not going to tell him he's wrong. It's fine by me. But I did have Jane help me out in KSC Public Affairs. And she says, here, I'll send you, since you're giving a NASA presentation, I'll send you what we call our vision statement. Okay, all right. So this is the vision statement. You know, we reach for new heights and reveal the unknown for the benefit of all human. Hey, that's the same thing, right? Just a few more words, and then a beautiful, beautiful chart that I can get behind 100%. But again, I'm not going to tell Mr. Wikipedia that his short and sweet one is okay by me. So I'd like to say, though, I have there's some supporting background information in this presentation. If you go pull it, there's Gene's full detail on his lessons learned in the back. There's some other charts I kind of was playing around with that I didn't use today. And I thank you for your attention. I think we've got a few minutes. Yeah, probably right on time, huh? I could try to answer. Again, I'm a tour guide, so I'm not super technical. I don't know all the wonderful history. I see we have a few folks in the audience that might even be able to answer some of the questions better than myself. So,
Questions?
And how much of that fixed service structure is going to be removed?
how much is the fixed service structure is going to be removed was the question. The fixed service structure is actually just being got down to the core structure so that they can put a crane on top and some other support elements to do vertical processing of payloads for the DoD customer that they believe they'll bring on board. So actually the fixed service structure was just to lighten it so that he can put a big, I think 90-ton hammerhead crane on top. The RSS, at some point, you won't see it anymore. I can't say when because the shifting priorities, SpaceX always is constantly analyzing their priorities and can shift things around. The key here is that it is not in the way of a launching vehicle. So he can just leave it there if he needs to, and a vehicle can be launched off Pad A with the RSS in place.
So they're planning to leave the RSS?
No, their ultimate plan is to demolish the RSS and the PCR with it. That whole, so when you ultimately, I'd say a year from now, if you were to look out there, you would just see the FSS with a crane. You wouldn't see any of that other stuff. And they actually have plans to maybe put some siding on it, so tighten it up. So it'll look like a real clean pad. With the RSS, it always kind of, you try to figure out what it was, But yeah, it's the RSS is going to ultimately come down. Yeah. Good question. Yes, sir.
Good presentation, Kevin.
Oh, thank you.
Do you know if there's any, since you're thinking the ultimate disposition is removing the RSS and the PCR, any preservation plans for key portions of that with the visitor complex or otherwise?
That's a good question. The question was, are there any plans for preservation or for the PCR or the RSS, any of those things? And Scott, those have been looked at. We've done a number of walkthroughs with our historic preservation person in SI. We really did not identify anything. There was one small area where at the final use of the PCR, the technicians signed the wall and put a placard in memory of one of the technicians that had passed away unexpectedly. And I did talk with SpaceX and with the person that was doing demo, and we think we can tiger saw out that portion of the wall and find a home for that. As far as any of the equipment or any of that kind of stuff, there really wasn't anything of major significance. We did, a few years prior to the last, well, probably like a year before STS-135, we had, I remember escorting the lady, we had a professional photographer from the National Archives come through, and she had, I call it the Ansel Adams camera. It was this huge, like it used film, the size of a book. And she literally, we took hours, and she would position herself, and it was black and white because the National Archives said, black and white only. And she was taking these portraits of various areas on the RSS that she thought, of panels and that kind of stuff, and that she thought would be of a historical nature. So we did have those photographs taken that are preserved in the National Archives.
Thank you.
Good question. Yes?
So at the start of the shuttle program, we had a hammerhead crane on top of 39A, and then we decided through the smarts of all the engineering out here that we no longer wanted to support a crane ops at having you're going to individually roll cranes out there. And then now SpaceX has decided to put a crane on there. What do you think the right?
That's a good question. The question was, at the start of shuttle, we had a hammerhead crane on top of the FSS, and then we got rid of it, and then we used mobile cranes for our crane ops and such. The answer, as best I can give it, is their crane will be for payload ops. I don't think I think our hammerheads were used for various ops on the pad.
They were used to lift up the transport canister up to put in the PCR.
Well, no, the PCR actually had an internal 90-ton hoist. So that was a separate from the hammerhead. The PCR actually had, there was a hoist room on top, again, adding to the weight. How do we get to 500 tons a leg? We had hoist room. We had spools of cable. We had the hook. All that was on the RSS to bring the canister up. So we had a crane there, and the hammerhead was more an operational crane. You know, that was before my time, but I can imagine like moving, you know, heavy equipment on the MLP or something like that. So there were 2 cranes, actually. The hammerhead was not a payload crane. SpaceX, that's why they're going to us. And I think the hammerhead that we had in shuttle was much smaller than 90 tons. I'm not certain, but I don't. 25 tons. So there's a big difference there. Good question. Good question. Any other questions? Well, thank you. You've been a great audience. I appreciate it.